We're back in the master bathroom building a wood slat feature wall that's going to surround the bathtub. It's going to have a floating shelf built into it, LEDs embedded behind the wood slats. And if this turns out like I see it in my head, then I think it'll be one of those next level projects. First things first, let's head to the lumber store to buy the wood. I'm not exactly sure what type of wood I should use. Generally, we need something that is going to hold up to being in a somewhat moist environment in the bathroom. And I want a lighter, warmer tone to balance all the cool tones in the tile. Bunch of things to balance out. We're gonna go in, figure it out as we go, like we always do. I'm not much of a planner, if you guys realize that. I keep coming back to maple. Maybe I just really love maple. We got the maple floors. I don't know, we'll see what else they have. So alder here is a good candidate. Grain's decently tight, light, fairly inexpensive. So that's an option. Just doing some quick online research on my phone, and it sounds like basswood is often used as a substitute for cedar. So that means it's gonna be a good wood for use in a bathroom. So we got a whole crap ton of basswood here. We're gonna go with it, inexpensive. No real grain, because with the slats, you don't want a ton of like figuring going on. Checks all the boxes. Let's go check out. We got this massive pile of wood back in the workshop. We're gonna mill everything up and rip the strips. Easy 3-step process here. Serious weather, tornado sirens just started going off here. Whoa! Did you get that?
Yeah.
Holy crap, I need like an awning. Wow. You know, as long as the tornado doesn't pick you up, it's kind of relaxing. Pitter patter, the warm air. You could, if you wanted, just go buy boards that are called S4S. That means they're surfaced on all 4 sides. Then you don't have to do any of that stuff that we just did, which probably just took, I don't know, 4 hours or so, 5 hours or so. But I kind of like doing it. And the whole point of that is that you get it an even thickness the whole way. That was the first step we did. And then we run this side on that joiner, and that gives us a perfect right angle on this side. And then you have the third side that's jagged. But that doesn't really matter when you run it through the table saw. You just need this flat side to square up against the fence so that we get nice square strips. Ripping these strips now. Ripping and stripping. That did not sound right. Okay. For the finish, I'm going with Total Boats Gleam 2.0 Marine Spar Varnish. Having a marine varnish is going to be awesome because obviously we're in the bathrooms. This stuff I know will hold up in a wet environment and protect the wood. I tested it out. It's not too dark or orange. It's just a little bit of color. I think it looks really nice. This is the raw wood versus the varnish. I think it's going to look really good. So over here, we got the sanding station. When we're done sanding over there, put them down here, throw some finish on. Once finish is on, it goes there. And just in case you're wondering, we are gonna have to finish all 4 sides because of moisture. And we don't want the wood bending and doing weird stuff if the backs are unfinished and the rest of it is finished. Well, hello there. Let's take a minute and hear from this video's amazing sponsor, Helix Sleep. Helix makes premium mattresses and bedding that are conveniently shipped right to your door. Now, as you can tell, I'm in my bed, but not in my bedroom. The renovation is running behind. I was hoping to have built a bed right now. Obviously, I haven't, but I just couldn't wait to try out my new Helix Sleep mattress. Helix makes it super easy to pick out a mattress. It's custom designed just for you and your partner based on a simple online quiz. When I took the quiz, I was matched with the Helix Dusk Luxe mattress, which you see right here. It has body contouring and extra support to keep my body perfectly aligned while I sleep. Now, there's a lot of buzzwords thrown in there, but I can personally tell you I sleep better than I have on any other mattress on my Helix. I absolutely freaking love the thing. I also added a Glaciotex cooling cover to my mattress, which is amazing during the hot summer months. And I hear what you're saying. You live in Chicago, Mike, but it does get hot here. In fact, last week it was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit here, and this thing did an awesome job of keeping me cool. Overall, I am sleeping better and sounder on my Helix Sleep. I absolutely love it, so much so that I'm now sleeping in my living room instead of my bedroom until I can build a king-size bed to fit the Helix in the master bedroom. Now, some of you might be nervous about buying a mattress online and not being able to try it out. Not a worry at all. With Helix, you get a 100-night sleep trial. That's over 3 months that you can try it out. And if you don't like it for any reason, Helix will come and pick the mattress up and give you a full refund. On top of that, Helix mattresses come with a 10-year warranty, plus free shipping to your door in the US. Right now, you can get up to $200 off of your Helix mattress, plus 2 free pillows. So if you want to improve your sleep, head over to helixsleep.com/Modustrial to check out Helix for yourself. Thanks again to Helix Sleep for sponsoring this video and supporting this channel. And now, let's get back into it. You know, I couldn't just make this a normal wood slat feature wall. We got to do something a little extra. We are going to add a really cool floating shelf structure in the middle to put, you know, your bubble bath on or whatever you want when you're sitting in the tub. So off camera, I went ahead and milled the boards that we're going to use for the floating shelf. And I didn't film milling these because, well, I just kind of like to get in that zen mode in the workshop where I'm just kind of zoning out, not worrying, enjoying the process of woodworking. So next, we're going to cut some miter corners and make basically just a miter box that's going to serve as our floating shelf. I think it's going to be pretty cool. All right. Pretty good. So before we put finish on anything, there's a couple of knots in the boards in the shelf, and I put them in a location where you won't really see them that much, but we do need to stabilize them, so we're gonna use a little Total Boat epoxy in those knots to make sure that they don't get mucked up over time. I marked some lines here because we need to make a cutout where the tub filler faucet's going to come through and into the shelf area. There's also a handheld shower, a little mark there. Going to cut it out very carefully with a jigsaw. Before we put slats on the wall, we actually have to paint the wall that's going to go behind the slats. And we want to use a flat black paint because we don't want any reflections off of it. We just want it to kind of disappear so that the wood pops and stands out from the wall. So now I'm going to take some time to look at something that honestly, I don't know if a lot of people look at, but these kind of details are super important when it comes to design. There's a decision to make about how much space should be between the slats. So what I did is I just cut up a bunch of strips of 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch plywood. I painted them black and just laid out some sample pieces of wood so I can get an idea what it'll actually look like with those two different spacings. And I'm not sure how much you're gonna be able to tell this on camera, but it makes a really big difference. So this, to my eye, just looks better. Unfortunately, to do the 1/2 inch spacing with these tighter together, that means we're gonna have some tricky stuff if we want to, spoiler alert, put some LEDs in between some of these. This LED profile I'm using doesn't fit between the 1/2 inch spacing, which means it's gonna have to go behind the strips. That introduces another complexity. We're gonna have to put horizontal cross pieces painted black behind the strips to space them away from the wall, so there's room for the LEDs and all the wiring. It's not just as easy as painting those strips that run behind the wall black. We gotta get them black in between here, but leave them unfinished where these are gonna go, because we're gonna glue these to that strip because it's a bathroom. I don't trust nails only. We gotta paint this black pattern, looks basically like this. So now it's time to tape off that pattern and basically make the sheet of plywood look just like this. So last thing to do before we actually go start install is deal with the exposed edges of these plywood backer sheets. Obviously you can't have this showing or you'll see them behind the wood slats. And I'm lucky enough that I have some matte black edge banding left from my kitchen cabinets. So let's get this edge band on and then we'll install this stuff because I am ready to get this project done. So first thing is to attach the backer pieces. And for these, we're just gonna use some construction adhesive and nails. That'll be fine because honestly, the slats aren't heavy. There's not a lot of downward weight on the support pieces, so they don't need to hold a lot of weight. The construction adhesive to the drywall will be totally fine for this application. It's finally time to start putting slats on the wall. We're gonna start with the short wall, which is just full length slats. Hopefully that'll be an easy win before we get to the more complicated wall, which has got the floating shelf in it. The process should be pretty straightforward. Cross your fingers. The end piece, which is 1.5 inches, so it can go all the way to the wall, will be nailed to the end of the wall strips. And we're gonna put a 1/2 inch spacer and put in the next strip. And we're just gonna attach it with wood glue and nails. The biggest thing I'm honestly worried about is squeeze out from wood glue. So I've got a bucket of water and a wet rag handy so that if there's any squeeze out, hopefully I can catch it right away and prevent any wood glue from mucking up, which should be an otherwise pretty clean install. Up next, we're installing the floating shelf. I'm gonna show you guys a very cool trick for installing floating shelves, floating anything with zero hardware showing, and in fact, really zero hardware. What you're gonna do is use a stud finder, find your studs, then you're gonna drill a 1/2 inch hole into the wall, into your studs, and when you're drilling, you just wanna be careful to drill as straight as you possibly can. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but pretty close to perpendicular to the wall. Next, we're gonna make a 1/2 inch hole in the exact same spot in the back of the shelf. So that way we can have a dowel extending from the inside of the shelf into your studs, making it all one solid structure. Shove that right into the wall. So then you got your holes in your shelf, and it should slide right on. Next up, time to install the slats on the larger wall. And I've hung up these black LED aluminum profiles just with painter's tape so I know where they're gonna go. As I'm installing, when I get to the spot where I'm installing, I'm going to skip one of the slats so there's still room to access these. Then I can come back later and then finish installing them. So to mount these black aluminum profiles, I'm just gonna use this extreme double-sided tape. This stuff is super, super high bond. It's actually made for outdoors, so it should hold up perfectly well in a wet environment of a bathroom. Well, we're down in the shop because, as they say, the best laid plans. The floating shelf was 40 inches, which should have lined up exactly so that there was a full strip right on either side of the shelf, kind of bookending it. But when I went to install the slat on the far side of it, it was off by just a little bit. And on paper, it was perfect. But the reality is, if my spacers or slats, the width of those were off 1/100th of an inch cumulatively across 50 slats, that could be a pretty big error. So we're gonna route out a little bit of one of the slats so that it'll fit nicely on the edge of the floating shelf. Spacer. Perfect fit. Just needed that little notch out of there. Now for the real secret behind this wall. We've got these LED profiles, LED channels, whatever you want to call them, hidden in there, but we got to be able to access them. Once we put the strips in, we don't want to nail down the slats because then you'll never be able to change the LED strips. We've got these super high strength neodymium magnets. We're going to use a Forstner bit, create a little hole. Bloop. Plop these magnets into the hole on the cross pieces here. We're just going to add a big old zinc washer to the back of the slats that you won't be able to see. That'll stick just fine to these high strength magnets. One of the nice things about using the washer on one side is it allows you to be a little more imprecise, because if you use magnets on both sides, they're gonna pull into one specific alignment. But with the washer, you can slide it up and down and move it around after you put it on the magnet. It just gives you some wiggle room, which is nice. All right, so let's see if it fits right there. And now we're actually going to deal with the backsplash here in this shelf. We're not just going to leave this plain wall. No. We're going to get a couple of the floor tiles and put the nice dark gray tiles on this backsplash so it feels like a little more luxury bath spa feel to it. Oh, works like a charm. So after a little bit of deliberating, I think we can basically just use the construction adhesive to put the tiles straight onto the wall. Bang, bang. Time to start doing the wiring for the LEDs. I'm actually down in the workshop because it's just going to be easier to do soldering here. So I've cut 6 equal lengths of COB LED strip and I've cut 6 lengths of wire to go between them. I'm gonna wire them all together here because it's a lot easier to do than after I install, and I think I should, hopefully, cross my fingers, be able to kind of thread all the LED strips through the wall to the appropriate channels. We're back up here, ready to install the LEDs. Off camera, I went ahead and wrapped all that white LED wire in some black electrical tape. Only reason to do that is for visual purposes. I just want the wire to disappear against the black wall. So I had the electrician run the wires through the wall, and I have a permanent LED driver ready to go, wired up, but it's not hooked up to the light switch yet because the electrician's gonna come do all that as their final pass after everything else is done. And I got a lot of comments in the last lighting video about, oh, you can build your own light, you gotta hire an electrician. Well, hey, if you wanna pass inspection in a city with complicated code like Chicago, you better be hiring an electrician, because otherwise you're gonna spend so much money redoing everything, ripping open walls because you failed your inspection. You gotta do what you gotta do. And right now, what I gotta do is install this. I had no idea that installing these would fall in the satisfying category, but when you put them in, you just get this satisfying little pop. And you get to peel the plastic off, so double satisfaction. I always get asked for this quick lights out test. I'm gonna turn all the other lights in the room off. We got 2 things to do to finish it off. We gotta use wood filler in all the holes from the nails, then quick sand and finish over those, and then come back for those hopefully satisfying shots of the finished product. So we got one more surprise, because whenever I use the white LEDs like this, a bunch of you guys are always commenting, why don't you do some RGBs, whatever. This time, we're gonna have our cake and eat it too. I'm gonna add some RGB LEDs all the way around the top here. And so I don't have to move all the soldering stuff downstairs again, I just set up a makeshift soldering station right up here. I got to put a little hole through the underside here. And hopefully it'll help again. And this one is 8.5 feet high. No one's ever going to see this. And it's got plenty of ventilation because it's all exposed up here. So I think it's going to be totally fine just kind of putting these here. Now we gotta install our tub hardware and the tub. Pretty exciting to see this all come together. Before we get to the final beauty shots, I want to share with you guys what's up next on the channel. First, we're gonna take a quick break to do an outdoor project on the roof deck. Then we're coming back to the bathroom to finish it off by building the vanity, the linen closet, and the concrete sink and countertop. I'm pretty stoked to see how it all comes out. Definitely make sure you're following along for that. And now, let's dive into the beauty shots. If you guys are digging the LEDs in the feature wall, I've got a bunch of other videos with DIY applications of LEDs. Check it out, there's a whole playlist of it. I think you'll dig it. That is it for this time, and I'll see you guys next time.